That girl Henny, y'all gotta go to her channel.
The girl Henny, do you know who she is?
She a blogger or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, where this lady come from?
Right on your ass.
She on your life, G.
Shout out to Henny over there.
This video and this content are operated by and protected underneath the guides of the Fair Use Act. It will be used for reporting, commentary, but most importantly, my review. So, hey, YouTube, and anybody who gets butthurt, do not come copyright striking my channel. Also, everything in this video is alleged according to what is known in public documents. And we aren't stating it as a fact because we weren't there, so we don't know what really happened. What's poppin', everybody? It's your favorite goss and doctender, that girl, Henny. And today, I'm going to be taking y'all back down a little stroll of memory lane. Way back to when I pulled this document for this court case, way back when. When did I pull this court document? 2 years ago. And for 2 years, this video has been up on my page, but it hasn't been picked up, and that's okay because since Adam and Wack's show aired on Sunday, I have decided that I was going to get back on Wack's neck. And the reason for this is because he is a shady, shisty businessman. And because of his shady, shisty businessman ways, we're going to be going through all of Wack's dealings all week long, breaking down every case that I have, every court doc, I should say, I have read over the course of these past 2 years. Now, as you know, from the intro, you heard Wack has been claiming he doesn't know me. And it's true. He doesn't know me, but he has heard of me and he does know of me because I've been standing on his neck for about 2 years. Now, I took a break, but now I'm back with the jump off. And we're going to be going down into these court docs about Wack defrauding a church. Dun, dun, dun. Now, if you haven't heard of this case before, baby, go get you a fresh cup, nice big red cup, and sit back and relax. And if you have heard this case, I'm quite sure you forgot about this case. So you sit back and relax, kick off your shoes and relax your feet. Get comfy, kicking it with Henny, just kicking it. Hey! Now, if you are new here, welcome. Please be sure to like, comment, and of course, subscribe. Click that notification bell, select all so that you get notified whenever I do a video. And if you are a returning Mob Down Henny Gang member, y'all know what time it is. All right, so boom. Hold on. Let me do this before we get started, just in case my computer want to act retarded. Bars, bitch. All right, so as y'all know, I already brought y'all the paperwork for the trainer. And if you weren't here for my live on Sunday, then you need to go back and watch it because I broke down the court docs and showed y'all how now all of a sudden Blueface's trainer David Kaminsky, now all of a sudden he want to try to dismiss his case and got up there on Adam's live and sat up there and lied on no jumper talking about, I didn't pull no paperwork. I didn't file no case on you. You're a liar. You're a liar and the truth ain't in you. But anyway, so because of that, that brought on this. So let me take y'all back into time and play this little video for y'all. I promise y'all it's not going to be long, but we're going to play this video real quick just to remind y'all that I have covered this already one time before. This up here. And y'all, if y'all thought the game was something, this may not be nothing to a lot of people, but it's just the simple fact that it is a church. You did this to the church. If you will do this to the church house, you'll do this to anybody. And I stand by that statement because if you will defraud and try to strong arm a church, you will do the same thing to any and everybody that crosses your path. So now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what we're going to do is we're going to re-pull those court docs and we're going to pour up on this. Now, I'm not going to give you anything. I'm not going to tell you what happened was. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to show you. So let's get this. No, I don't. Well, we could do that. We could do that. We could do that right there. We could do that right there. And I'll stay in the little circle on the side. Court docs with little Henny on the side. Hey, all right. So we're going to pull this over right here. And then we're going to go ahead and put our watermark the way that we like our watermark. Bang. And let's get into this case, shall we? All right. So this case goes way back because I told y'all I was going to be digging in the crates and pulling this stuff up so y'all could be brought up to speed with everything, because every now and again it's good to go down memory lane. So in this court document, it was filed on July 16th, 2020, and it was filed by Apostolic New Life Ministry, doing business as New Life Community Church, a California nonprofit. Yes, a church. Okay. And it says the complaint is for breach of oral agreement, specific performance, declaratory relief. Okay. And they was going up against Travis D. Wilson and Cash M. McJones. I wonder if that's the same Travis that was involved in that whole no jumper situation with Mozzie and all of them. I got to put my ear to the street and figure out if that's who this is. But anyway, let's continue. So the general allegations for this is, at all relevant times herein mentioned, the church was a nonprofit corporation duly organized and existing under the laws of the state of California, with the principal business in the county of Los Angeles. Okay. Now, at all relevant times herein mentioned, the defendant, Travis D. Wilson, from here on forward will be mentioned as Wilson. And let's see, all other relevant herein mentioned defendants, BRH Holdings LLC, which is a limited liability out of the state of Florida, doing business in Pompano Beach, okay, which is something that Wack likes to do. He likes to do business in Florida too. Then you've got the defendant, Cash M. Jones moving forward, and he's an individual who resided in the county of Los Angeles with the business of Fifth Amendment Entertainment, which is doing business in the county of Los Angeles, California. All right. So now you know who the defendants are. Let's get into it, shall we? So it says, on or about June 11th of 2017, the church entered into a commercial property purchase agreement to purchase a building in Lancaster, California, okay? A large land parcel of approximately 1.5 acres for the price of $250,000. Kimberly Jones represented the church. So at this time, Wack and Kim were separated, but they were still doing their business, right? Okay, well, she was still doing her business. Now it says that she represented the church as their real estate agent in the transaction. So she was the real estate agent in the transaction for the church to get the building and the property. All right. Now it says, in or about February 2019, Kimberly Jones informed the church that her husband, which was Cash Jones, has offered to advance the church $250,000 needed to purchase and acquire the subject property. Unknown to the church at the time, Wack and Travis Wilson were to split the $250,000, with the church paying defendant paying $125,000. So Wack was going to pay the $125,000. This Travis Wilson person was going to pay $125,000, which was going to then be the loan for the church to get the building and the property. Okay, as part of the consideration of the loan, the church, Cash McElroy Jones, and Travis Williams were to take a temporary interest in the property and the land, right, through their respective corporations until the church repaid them back. So they were going to take their property. So we know that Wack's property was the Fifth Amendment property, and Travis, his is BRH Holdings. So you got BRH Holdings and you've got Fifth Amendment. It's crazy how everybody who seems to get a building with him is some type of holdings. Because remember, we heard a lot about JTT Holdings and Cash. It was a lot of different LLCs that popped up in the cover up of the game, hiding his money from Priscilla Rainey. So now we've got BRH and we've got Fifth Amendment. Okay. So he was entering into the contract with Wack and Travis, but they were doing it underneath their businesses. So Fifth Amendment put up $125K and Travis Wilson's BRH put up $125K. All right. Now, the plaintiff's obligation to repay, which the church's obligation to repay, was conditioned on obtaining a construction loan for the church, for the building and the property, which Wack and Travis were to help the church obtain. So the church was to pay Wack and Travis back for the construction loan proceeds, which then would trigger Wack and Travis obligations to transfer their interest in the building and the land. Now, the reason why I'm saying the building and the land is because saying subject property and all of that, I realize sometimes people aren't able to keep up with all of that. So I'm trying to make this as easy for all of us as I possibly can. Okay. All right. As part of the agreement, the church was responsible for separating the parcel into two separate parcels. All right. One with the new church and the parking lot would stand on, and the other parcel, which would obtain the seller's current structure of Faith Bible Church. So basically, the church was going to have the building, but they were also going to have a parking lot on there, right? So in or about February 19th, all the parties agreed to the above terms, and the defendants, Wack and Travis, and the plaintiff, the church, entered into an oral agreement. So thus far, this is what we have. You've got Wack via Fifth Amendment and this Travis Wilson person under BRH Holdings entering into a contractual agreement with the New Life Church. Fifth Amendment and BRH were going to lend the church the $250,000 that they needed. The church was then going to apply for a construction loan. And once they got the proceeds from the construction loan, BRH Holding and Fifth Amendment, Travis and Wack, would then turn the property over to the church. So basically, they were going to be holding the title and the deed to the property and the building until he paid. All right. So now, in or about March 2019, escrow closed for the property and the land with the following owners on the title as tenants in common. So you had Apostolic New Life Ministry, a California nonprofit. You had BRH Holding, LLC, a Florida limited liability company. And you had Fifth Amendment, a Florida corporation that does business out of Los Angeles, California. Just make sure that y'all remember that, okay? As required by the terms of agreement, defendant Travis Wilson, BRH, introduced the church to an affiliate, which was Griffin Capital, to assist the church in obtaining a construction loan on the building and the land. Griffin Capital, in turn, identified a lender, Five Star Banking, to write a construction loan for the church. On or about January 5th of 2020, Five Star Bank sent the church an expression of interest letter outlining the general terms of the construction loan in the amount of no less than $1,250,000, or 65% of the appraised value of the building and the land. So he ended up getting a loan for way more, $1 million more than what he owed to Wack and Travis. Okay. Now, the church incorporates and realleges by reference each and every allegation contained in paragraphs 1 through 20 and everything set forth, meaning everything going forward. Okay. In or about January of 2020, Cash McElroy Jones contacted the church and unilaterally attempted to amend the terms of the agreement by demanding that the church place his wife and his son on the church's executive board, or he would cancel the construction loan with Five Star Banking and not perform under the terms of their oral agreement. Stop. So they entered into the agreement, and we just broke down the agreement. The agreement was there was going to be $250,000 given, broken down into two. One portion from BRH Holding, the other portion from Fifth Amendment, on behalf of Travis Wilson and Cash McElroy Jones. The terms of the agreement were, you get a construction loan, you pay us our money back, we take our businesses off of the title. It is yours free and clear once you pay us back the $250,000. Right? Well, now here comes Wack trying to amend the agreement, telling the church to place his wife and his son on the board, the executive board of the church. So what happened? Well, the church refused Wack's demand, and consequently, the construction loan with Five Star Banking failed to process any further despite being previously approved. So somehow, some way, Wack was able to contact them people at Five Star Banking, and because the church did not want to adhere to his demands, he stopped the loan. What does that mean? That means that he now owns the church. Him, Travis, and the church are all on the title, and he's not coming up off the title till you give him what he wants. Now, that's a side demand, and that actually has nothing to do with Travis. So I'm wondering if this Travis Wilson person knew that Wack was doing this. So Wack demanded to unilaterally add terms to an agreement with a threat of non-performance of his contractual obligation constitutes an anticipatory breach of the oral agreement. Okay? Wack conspired to cause the previously approved construction loan with Five Star Banking to fail. The plaintiff is thereby excused from performance under the oral agreement by as obtaining the construction loan is a condition precedent to the church's performance. Okay, so the church saying, "Listen, we fulfilled our obligation and paid all fees attended with the parcel split, establishing part performance and oral agreement." Right. So now the church basically is like, we held up our end of the bargain. He came in and he tampered with it. So this is where this case left off at, right? They were asking to go to court, and this was dated July 15th of 2020. Well, I don't know if I told y'all about this or not, but in 2023, on January 23rd of 2023, there was an order to show cause for dismissal, and it says settlement, which means that there was an outside of court settlement and agreement between Wack, Travis, and the church. So instead of settling this matter in court, it was settled outside of court. Let me show y'all that. Oh, y'all seeing it? Y'all see it right here. And it says settlement. And what happened, Henny? What happened? So what had happened was there was a request for dismissal of this case with prejudice, meaning it can never be brought up again. Case closed. Did the church get their money? Did they ever get their building back? We don't even know, because there is nothing further. But it looks like towards the end, this may have been settled between Travis and the church, because they're the only two that show up on this paperwork. But now, what does this have to do with everything that's been going on, Henny? Because if this man, we started here with the church, because if this man will behave in a diabolical manner, shout out to Active Chucks, what's popping? If this man will behave in a diabolical manner as to strong arm a church out of an agreement, if they didn't adhere to his terms of the contract, what makes you think that anybody doing business with him is safe? No one is doing business with this man is ever safe, ever. But to do this to a church shows you have no soul. You have no moral, no principle, and it's highly demonic, in my opinion. In my opinion, that's in my humblest of opinions. Now, I have more court docs that I've pulled and that I've covered, and I'm going to be getting into all of those court docs as the week goes on, because I told y'all that I was going to be bringing y'all court docs. As a matter of fact, let's just keep the party going, because that court doc moved very quickly, didn't it? So let's get into the next court doc that I have. Since we got a little bit of time, I'm going to give y'all another one. Y'all want another one? Drop them Henny glasses in the chat if y'all want another one. Let me know what y'all want. Y'all want another one? You want me to do another case? Because I got more. And these are from the beginning. Okay. Now, what I do want to say is you cannot hold Kim liable for anything that happened within that situation, because she was not a part of that contractual deal that happened. All right. He said Wack is Satan incarnate. Yes, I agree with you. Oh, y'all want another one? Y'all, I see y'all dropping them Henny glasses. They said drop another one, Henny. Give us another one, Henny. Okay. Y'all want another one? I got you. Hold on. Let me pull all of these court docs up so we could get into this one. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this one is still ongoing. Oh, y'all like y'all like court doc story time with Henny. All right, boom. Your wish is my command, darling. Let me get back over here in my little corner and let's get into this next one. So in this next one that we're about to pull up, this is the case. Oh, thank God. This is the case of Kenneth Lawson and Monique Jadon Lawson versus Cash McElroy Jones, okay? Fifth Amendment Entertainment, Cash Money Records, Inc., Cash Money Records West, Brian Williams, a.k.a. Birdman, individually, and DBA, Cash Money Records, Inc., and Cash Money Records West, Ronald Williams, a.k.a. Slim, individually, and DBA, Cash Money Records, Inc., Cash Money Records West, Cash Money Records, Inc. in Louisiana Corporation, okay, Cash Money West, an entity unknown form, because Cash Money, let me tell y'all, Cash Money West was not an operating entity in the West Coast. I think I should give y'all a video on that, because recently it has come to my attention that 600 has the rights to Cash Money West now. Did y'all know that? Henny glasses in the chat if y'all knew that, because I forgot all about the fact that I got that information a long time ago. I forgot all about that. But anyway, and what is Kenneth suing for? Kenneth is suing for battery, assault, negligence, negligent hiring, retention, training, or supervision, premise liability, negligent infliction of emotional distress, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and loss of consortium. Now, I don't know what that means, but I'm going to look it up. I will find out what loss of consortium means. Hold on 1 second. You know me, I don't mind learning right along with y'all as we come across stuff. Ain't nothing wrong with it. So loss of consortium is a legal claim filed by the spouse or family member of a person who has been severely injured or unalive, seeking compensation for the loss of companionship, affection, intimacy, and support. So that claim right there, that last part in number 8 is coming from Kenneth Lawson's wife. And what happened, Henny? I'm going to tell you what happened. Let me go ahead and scroll on down here and tell you what happened. Now, this was filed in court in 2021. So now we done covered a case from 2020, and now we are covering a case from 2021, darling. Okay. Now, this is not bad business practices, but this is bad character. And it kind of lines right on up with No Jumper if you think about it, because do you see how he's at the top of the lawsuit, but it brought Cash Money into it, it brought Birdman into it, it brought Slim into it because of Wack. Okay. Now, what did Wack get into? Let me see. Let's get to the general allegation, shall we? So let me whet my whistle. Y'all ready? All right. Jones' attack on Lawson. Oh, yes, he hit somebody. December 29th, 2019, at around 7 p.m., Lawson and his wife entered and were lawfully on the premises of the restaurant. Wait, let me scroll back up. I got to tell y'all where the restaurant was, because I know y'all don't really want to hear all of that. Well, all right, they don't have what the restaurant was in here with the parties. Nope. But it does say that they were requesting a jury trial. Anyway, all right. Nope, it doesn't have it on there. All right, so he was in a restaurant. Oh, Yamashiro. That's where they were. They was in Yamashiro. Am I saying that right? For all my people in California, if you familiar with that restaurant, did I say that right? Where the hype button, baby girl? I don't know. I think it only comes on the replay. Okay, so he's suing this Yamashiro LLC as well as this 1999 Sycamore LLC. All right, so boom. So now on December 29th of 2019 at around 7 p.m., Kenneth Lawson and his wife, they entered into the restaurant. They were supposed to be there, right? Now, also on December 29th at 9 p.m., Wack approached Kenneth in the restaurant bar and accused him, Kenneth that is, of talking to Wack's wife. Now, at the time, we know what wife he's talking about. He's talking about Kim. He approached Kenneth because he thought Kenneth was talking to Kim. Kenneth says, Lawson is Kenneth, y'all, in case y'all lost and y'all reading along. Kenneth never met Wack or Wack's wife and had no prior communications with the Joneses. I'm going to say the Joneses before this encounter. All right. Now, Kenneth denies speaking to Kim, but Wack continued to yell at Kenneth while accusing Kenneth of speaking to Kim. Don't that sound just like his little short Napoleon complex self, sitting up there yelling and hooping and hollering at everybody? Upon hearing Wack's verbal assault on her husband, Monique, that's Kenneth's wife, approached Wack and introduced herself as Kenneth's wife to de-escalate Wack's aggressive behavior towards Kenneth. Now, you know that's not going to work because y'all know how he do. But let's continue. In response to Monique's attempt to de-escalate the situation, Wack yelled at Kenneth, "Keep your bitch in check." Let me say it like him. Hold on. "Keep your bitch in check." I don't know if that's a good imitation of him or not, but that's what he yelled at. And we've heard him say this before, so we know that this is accurate, right? Allegedly, this is accurate, right? So Jones then suddenly and without provocation punched Kenneth Lawson in the mouth and jaw. Wack done punched this man in the mouth and jaw. Why he don't punch nobody else in the... Who is this Kenneth Lawson guy? I forgot who he is. Kenneth Lawson. I believe he's an actor. Yeah, he's an actor. Oh, that can't be him. I know he didn't punch on him. Hold on, y'all. I don't know if this is the Kenneth Lawson that we talking about, but Kenneth Lawson is out there in California and he's an actor. And I heard word on the curb when I first did this. Allegedly, this is the Kenneth Lawson. Henny glasses in the chat if you know who this is. If you've seen him in movies before, let's see. Yeah, we done seen him around acting and stuff. What show is that? Moesha. You done punched the Moesha actor in the face? Yeah, he know who to do that to. He know who to do it to, don't he? So now he done punched. Now we gonna call him Ken since he go by Ken. allegedly, if that's him, all right, done punched the man in the mouth and the jaw, and then Wack, the punch caused Kenneth to lose consciousness and fall on the floor. He done punched the man in the mouth and knocked him out onto the floor. After violently punching Kenneth and rendering him unconscious, Wack turned towards Monique and cocked his arm as if he were going to hit her. He was going to hit her. But before Wack was able to strike Monique, another restaurant guest intervenes and prevented Wack from physically assaulting Monique. Wack then yelled the words, "Pyru." Does this sound fictional to you? This sounds very accurate to me. Which, upon information and belief, is gang slang. Okay. Wack left the restaurant before Los Angeles police arrived. After Wack's vicious and unprovoked attack, Monique rushed her husband Kenneth to the hospital. Wack's attack on Kenneth resulted in a 4-inch deep laceration on Kenneth's lip and chin, multiple fractures of his jaw, 3 dislodged teeth, and 1 tooth being knocked out. Kenneth's jaw was wired for 3 months. Wack's attack also caused Kenneth to suffer from disfigurement of his mouth, severe headaches, neck pain, dizziness, and excessive weight loss. Kenneth has received and continues to receive treatment from maxillofacial surgeons. He done been to a bunch of doctors. He done went to a therapist for post-traumatic stress disorder. All right. Kenneth suffers from constant mouth, tooth, and jaw pain, excessive and severe headaches, difficulty sleeping, anxiety, dizziness, loss of appetite, loss of consortum, and affects his wife. So he's so jacked up about being punched in the jaw and mouth by Wack that he can't even perform his husbandly duties. PTSD, neck pain, loss of weight as a result of the wiring of his jaw for 3 months, and permanent disfigurement to his lip and chin as a direct result of Jones's actions. I think Wack hit him with something. I don't believe that Wack hit him that hard that he did that. Somebody's here that said, allegedly they saying that their brother is a deacon at the church, and he's saying no, the church never got their building back. Do tell your brother to reach out to me if he want to talk about it, because I just read the court docs. This is the second time I done read them court docs, but I would love to sit with somebody from the church and find out what had happened was. Shout out to Stand On It Media up in here. Shout out to everybody that is in the chat. I see y'all. I love y'all, but y'all know when I'm reading, I don't see everything that's going on in the chat. I just happen to look up and see that the church never got they building. So that means he done made the church probably. I don't know. Allegedly, I'm saying allegedly because I don't know all of the details. I just know the portions from the court documents. So apparently there must have been a settlement that was supposed to be reached, and the settlement might not have been reached, and they never got their building. Ain't that about nothing? Just strong arm the church all the way even out the building. Damn, I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and say at least maybe they done got their building back, but you know, shameful. This is shameful. So now, as a direct result of Wack's attack on Kenneth has difficulty reasonably or meaningfully interacting with others, specifically in public settings. Kenneth is a successful, well-known, and highly visible actor in the entertainment industry. That's him, y'all. That is him. That is him. You done punched the Moesha actor in the mouth because you insecure. You thought that man was trying to talk to kill her. You knew he was going to take her. Sorry, it's not funny. It's not funny, but it is. Anyway, Kenneth's inability to freely interact with others has substantially interfered with his professional obligations, including his need to interact with the public and his fans, and to attend and mingle at events, including movie premieres, auditions, and casting calls. Due to the trauma and permanent disfigurement of Lawson's jaw, Kenneth's jaw, chin and lip and teeth, Kenneth has suffered substantial emotional distress, anxiety, nervousness, and fear. As a direct result of Wack's attack on Kenneth, Kenneth has and continues to experience severe financial losses, including the loss of production of his television show, The Cut. Wait a minute, hold on 1 second. Let me just double check myself right quick on here. Let me see. Was he on The Cut? Is that on here? Let me see. Let's see. Oh, yep, that's him, y'all. We got it. This is him. It's in The Cut. In The Cut is what he's on, but that's too much of a coincidence. I'm gonna go on ahead and go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say, yep, that's him. That's him right there. That's him right there. Is that his mouth disfigured or just the way he's holding it? I wonder if that's just the way he's holding his mouth. You know, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna leave that alone because he's the alleged victim in the case. All right. So it was in its 7th season of production when it was canceled because of Kenneth's injuries. All right. Also, because of this situation, the attack on Monique, it caused her to suffer with excessive and severe headaches. Wait a minute. Wack's attack on Monique. He didn't hit her, but okay. But they're saying that she got anxiety and difficulty sleeping from all of this and all of that too, right? Okay, so it says, as a direct result of witnessing Wack's malicious battery of her husband and experiencing Wack's vicious and malicious assault of her, Monique has difficulty interacting with other people. Now, upon information and belief, Wack is and was the president, owner, founder, manager, agent, representative, alter ego, partner, joint venture, officer, sole proprietor, or employee of Fifth Amendment Management, Fifth Amendment Entertainment, Inc., Cash Money Records, and Cash Money West. Now, do you hear all the Cash Money Records and Cash Money West, which again brought Birdman and Slim into this situation? Adam, you better pay attention. He got you in a trick bag already with Jay Reed and them. You still want to do business with Wack? Oh, all right. Upon information and belief, Wack is, or Jones, is at all times, was the agent, partner, joint venture, or employee of defendant Brian Williams and Ronald Williams. Upon information and belief, Brian Williams is, and at all relevant times, was the co-president, co-founder, founder, manager, agent, sole proprietor, representative, alter ego, partner, joint venture, employee, or officer of Cash Money Records and Cash Money West. Upon information and belief, Ronald Williams is, and at all times was, the president, co-owner, founder, manager, agent, sole proprietor, representative, alter ego, partner, joint venture, employee, or other officer of Cash Money Records and Cash Money West. Upon information and belief, Wack was under the direct supervision, employ, agency, and control of Brian Williams, Ronald Williams, Fifth Amendment Management, Fifth Amendment Entertainment, Inc., Cash Money Records, and Cash Money West. You see how this is all tying together? You're doing business with him, your ass is going down, okay? Wack's employment duties and responsibilities with Brian Williams, Ronald Williams, Fifth Amendment, Inc., which y'all know Fifth Amendment was all him. Cash Money Records and Cash Money Records West included promoting new artists at various public venues, events, and parties. Wack's job responsibilities with Brian Williams and Ronald Williams, Fifth Amendment, Inc., Cash Money Records, and Cash Money West put Wack in direct contact with the public, including the plaintiffs and other guests in the restaurant. On the evening of December 29th, 2019, when Jones Wack attacked Kenneth, Wack was at the restaurant to promote certain recording artists, including Bethany Henderson, aka B-Ray, and Jonathan Porter, aka Blueface. The recording artist Jones promoted at the restaurant on December 29th, 2019 were managed or represented by Jones, Brian Williams, Ronald Williams, the Fifth Amendment businesses, and both entities of Cash Money. On the evening of December 29, 2019, when Jones attacked Kenneth, Jones was acting within the scope of his employment and agency for Birdman and Slim, for Fifth Amendment both entities, and for Cash Money both entities as well. Cash Money knew that Jones, Wack, had and continues to have a propensity for violent conduct. Let me highlight that. I like the way that word sounds. I've heard it before, but I really like that word. A propensity for violence. Specifically, unprovoked attacks of mayhem that he inflicts on strangers and innocent people. Let's highlight that too, because this is still behavior that he continues to this day. Okay, striking them in the mouth and jaw with the intent to render them unconscious and cause them permanent physical impairment. Stop, because there's a lot of people that's been calling him out, and he ain't punched them in the mouth or none of that. He be faking and jacking for y'all like he really gonna do something, like that whole situation with him and Moose Man. Creep was not holding Wack back like that. And anytime somebody stops holding him or trying to restrict him, that's when he stops trying to get at the person. As long as you got your arm up, people, hey man, you don't want this. As soon as they move the hand, then he back up. He's still talking, but he backing up. Man, listen, please. Boo, bye, good night. You know who to pull that shit on. You did this to this man because this man was an actor. You knew he wasn't part of none of the BS that was going on. You felt insecure and you punched that man in the face, in the jaw, and all of that. Now he's suing you, him and his wife. All right. Wack publicly admitted to being an active gang member of Pyru gang for more than 20 years. As a member of the gang, Jones has a reputation of inciting physical violence, causing mayhem, and grave bodily harm to others. We don't know of him to ever do any of that stuff to anybody but you, sir. I'm just saying, as the general public, we haven't heard him do this to nobody else but you. Wack has a reputation. Okay, we already read that part. Wack is known as an enforcer within the gang community. Now, I ain't never heard that neither. The only person he was an enforcer for was Ray J in that Jared Milgram case. That's when we heard that he was being the strong arm and the muscle. But you see how he was picking on Jared Milgram. And Jared Milgram, when you looked at his photos, you saw he wasn't part of none of this street life. He didn't even come to the corner store. You know what I'm saying? So you know who to do this shit to. Anyway, an enforcer is a person who displays or engages in violent acts, including physical attacks, grave bodily injury to others, mayhem, assault, threats, intimidation, coercion, and instilling fear. They laid this shit down like Wack is the boogeyman. And me as a woman, I ain't fucking scared of him. You scared of him? Y'all scared of him? Have y'all heard this before? I ain't heard this before. Anyway, Jones also publicly admits, and court records reflect, that he was previously incarcerated and served time in the California State Department of Corrections, Soledad, beginning at the age of 19. Stop. That is a fucking lie. He has never been to Soledad. We got the court docs on that. We got the prison records on that one. Remember? We did that video already. We already told y'all he done lied. Anyway, consistent with his ongoing gang affiliation and incarceration at one of the most violent prisons in the country, Jones proudly declared on social media that he is a savage, gang-banging ass nigga. They said that. I didn't say it. Look, I'm going to highlight it for y'all so y'all can see it. He said that. It's right there in the court document. I am... I gotta pull it together, Henny. Pull it together. I'm sorry. Okay. Ooh, okay. Ooh, all right. Oh. Brian Williams, Ronald Williams, Fifth Amendment Management, Fifth Amendment Entertainment, Cash Money Records, and Cash Money West all knew or should have known that Wack has been arrested several times for engaging in unprovoked attacks, and that Wack was charged by the district attorney of Los Angeles with domestic violence prevention involving minor children twice in 2011 and 2012. Stop. This attorney, let me tell you something. Oh, hold on a second. You need me? Okay. This attorney, went online and looked up Wack, and that's why they got all of that information about him being in the first enforcer and a savage gangbanging ass nigga. They got that shit from watching him online. But now they did do a little digging in the court system, right? And they saw that the DV situation is factual. So if he ever tries to get out here and lie and say that the DV paperwork that has been read by me and several others against him when it comes down to Kim is fake, it's in another piece of court documentation. Okay. All right. So they mentioned it. Additionally, Wack was indicted and charged by the federal government with racketeering. Wait, pause. On April 9th, 2020, a matter that is still pending. Okay. That's the Jared Milgram case, y'all. That's Jared Milgram. The Jared Milgram case is in here. Yeah. That's Jared case, y'all. Can't say Jared's case is fake because it's right here in the paperwork. So thus far in this case, in this documentation here, it has confirmed the validity of the domestic violence that was done to Kim in 2011 and 2012. It has also validated the RICO of Jared Milgram. Yeah. Don't you love a good court doc read? I didn't even, you know, hindsight is 2020. That's why it was meant for me to come back and read these court docs, because there's little gems in these court docs that solidify all the shit, all the court documents that came. I didn't know that was in here. When I read this the first time, I didn't know about that, but Henny Legal went to digging because the RICO case was, and that's how we ended up finding Jared Milgram, because we was looking for that. Yeah. Anyway, Brian and Ronald Williams and the Fifth Amendment entities and the Cash Money Records. Shout out to Diamond Keyway, because remember we ran that content for y'all. Cash Money Records and Cash Money Records West had actual and constructive knowledge that Wack engaged in numerous unprovoked attacks on individuals prior to Wack's attack on Kenneth, yet they failed to take responsible steps and failed to implement reasonable safeguards to avoid acts of violence in the future by Wack, including but not limited to preventing Wack from working at events, venues, parties, and similar gatherings where individuals could be injured by Wack. So now this is how Cash Money came into play with this, and how if you sit up and you put yourself into alignment with Wack 100, you're going to find yourself in trouble. All right. So now let's get down here. He says that Cash Money, Birdman, and Slim, they all failed to take responsible steps to avoid Wack's attack. Instead, they permitted him to remain in a position of authority and trust despite their knowledge that Wack had and continues to have a propensity for violent conduct, specifically unprovoked acts of mayhem that he inflicts upon strangers or innocent people, striking them in the jaw with the intent to render them unconscious and cause severe pain, of severe permanent physical impairment. They allowed Wack to come into contact with strangers and in the public at large, including the plaintiff, without adequate supervision. They failed to take responsible steps and to implement reasonable safeguards to avoid acts of violent conduct and attacks by Wack upon strangers and the public at large, including the plaintiff. Now, stop right there. Hold on. Stop right there. Let's backtrack this for a second, because this situation that happened at No Jumper with Moose Man happened after the situation that took place with Jay Reed and what were y'all calling him, Mauricio, but that we found out that's not his real name. But the whole attack that happened out there in the back of No Jumper, Wack is employed by No Jumper, and while he may not have physically laid a hand on Jay Reed or the other gentleman, guess what? He was still there. He was still there. He was watching. He was telling Luce what to do, because when Luce got ready to pull that firearm out, he told him no. While Wack tries to say that he wasn't there during the commencement of that attack, yes he was, because he got into the Mercedes truck. And how do we know that? Because when you watch that video, the Mercedes truck lights were off, and when the whole attack was over and everybody was clearing it, the lights went on and the truck pulled out. So if this situation with Moose Man had went left and they ended up getting into something and Moose Man got in trouble, this is the type of lawsuit that Adam and No Jumper would be looking at for continuing to employ Wack there and continuing to not contain him. He should not be interacting with other people according to this document. And I stand by that shit. Hello. Okay. But basically, that's what they're saying, and that's why they are bringing Birdman and them into this. Now, Henny, what happened with all of this? Well, let's get over here and let's see what happened. So the defendants, which would be Birdman and Slim, on behalf of Cash Money Inc., it's a notice of motion and a motion for determination, of good faith settlement declaration. They decided that they were going to settle. Birdman and them said, we are going to settle this case. We want our names out of this. So we're going to give you some mignon so you could go on about your business. Okay, so it says, please take notice that on March 12th, 2024, 4 years later, Birdman Slim, on behalf of Cash Money Inc., okay, with and hereby does move this court for a determination of the good faith settlement, okay? So, between Kenneth Lawson and Monique Lawson, the plaintiffs, right? The settlement agreement is fully executed, but is contingent on the court making a good faith determination. Please take further notice that defendants request an order determining that the non-settling parties are barred from seeking equitable indemnity contributions or relief. Okay, so they requested that this settlement be adhered to. And the introduction to this is a negligence case involving an alleged altercation between plaintiff Kenneth and Monique Lawson and Cash McElroy Jones, Wack 100, on the premises of Yamashiro Hollywood on December 29th, 2019. Okay. Plaintiff's complaint alleges that only defendant Wack 100 directly committed torturous acts on the plaintiff. In contract, plaintiff's claim against Brian Williams and Ronald Williams and Cash Money Records, Inc. are based on various theories of third-party liability, none of which apply. For its part, plaintiffs allege that defendant Cash Money Records, Inc. was the primary entity employing, supervising, controlling, retaining, and ratifying the behavior and conduct of defendant Wack 100. Similarly, the plaintiffs allege that defendants Brian Williams and Ronald Williams were the primary entities owning, operating, controlling, and ratifying the activities and behaviors of Wack 100. The foregoing allegations are untrue. The Cash Money defendants have never had an employment relationship with Wack 100. Stop. Cash Money defendants have never had an employment relationship with Wack 100 and thus never had control of or responsibility for his actions. Plaintiff claims against the Cash Money defendants are also improper because they are based on improper theories of third-party liability. Well, looky there. Looky, looky, we got cookies. Now, they could be saying this just so that they could relinquish themselves and push back from him. But that don't sound good in a court of law, does it? Plaintiffs' claim against the cash money defendants are also improper because they are based on improper theories of third-party liability under the doctrine of respondent superior. An employer is vicariously liable for his employees' torts committed within the scope of the employee. Here, even if defendant Wack 100 was an employee of cash money defendants, any alleged torturous acts committed by him are not within the scope of his employment. Based on this evidence, the cash money defendants are prepared to file a motion for summary judgment. While preparing this motion, however, the cash money defendants and plaintiff reached an amicable settlement, and the settlement agreement was fully executed on November 20th, 2023. The settlement resolves all claims against cash money defendants in this action. Specifically, the cash money defendants therefore move this court for an order filing that the settlement agreement was made in good faith. So, Cash Money said, we don't employ him. We don't even know that nigga. But what we gonna do is we gonna settle with you outside of court. Okay, we gonna agree on a number, and I'm gonna give you that number, and it's only gonna be for Slim Birdman Cash Money, and that's it. Because even in their response, you don't see them mention no Cash Money West, now do you? You just see Cash Money Inc. Things that make you go, yeah. Okay. On September 21st, 2021, plaintiff filed the complaint asserting claims of battery and assault. Okay, so it's just going back over all of that. All right. Let's continue to read. Plaintiff claims that cash money defendants are somehow responsible for the incident under a theory of respondent superior. I don't know if I'm saying that right. However, there's no evidence that there was any type of employment relationship between Wack 100 and cash money defendants. Plaintiffs' claims against cash money defendants are also improper because they are based on improper theories of third-party liability. Under the doctrine of respondent superior, an employee, okay, we already read that part. Here, Wack 100 is a music manager, even assuming a grandio? I don't know. That Wack 100 was the cash money defendant's employee, which the cash money defendants deny. Wack 100 alleged tortious acts against plaintiff while inside the Yumashiro Hollywood restaurant fall entirely outside the scope of his employment. So they're saying even if he was employed by us, what he did to y'all falls outside of the scope of his employment. It don't matter if he was there for these artists or not on behalf of us. What he did ain't got nothing to do with us, okay? Accordingly, Wack 100 alleged act does not impute to the represented defendant under any theory of liability. Indeed, there is no evidence that supports the plaintiff's claims against cash money defendants. Tell me you don't fuck with a nigga without telling me you don't fuck with a nigga. Henny, pull your shit together. You can't be laughing. Plaintiffs allege Wack 100 was at Yumashiro Hollywood on the night of the incident to promote a cash money record artist. However, plaintiffs have not provided a single piece of evidence that supports these claims. Rather, plaintiffs mistakenly conclude Wack 100 was an employee or an agent of cash money. Defendants' basis are mere speculation. You just because he was there with people that you believe to be cash money records artists don't mean that they are artists, and that don't mean that we noticed. Plaintiff Monique Lawson admitted that the only evidence she had that Wack 100 was at Yumashiro to promote cash money records artists on the night of the incident was because of his interactions at the party and the way he moved around the party, none of which suggests that Wack 100 was in fact an agent or employee of the defendant the cash money defendants. Based on these facts, plaintiffs cannot establish a prima facie, one of them words. Okay. Look, leave me alone. It's been a long day. Case against cash money defendants at trial. Since Wack 100's acts can't impute any theory of liability on cash money defendants, the cash money defendants plan to file a motion of summary judgment. The cash money defendants, however, recognize the time and expenses associated with preparing a disputed motion, and as well as the costs associated with trying this case. Thus, the plaintiffs and cash money defendants reached an amicable settlement, which is what basically this is for. So cash money separated themselves from Wack, okay? And they basically got themselves out of this. The conclusion, the settlement of defendant's settlement with the plaintiff is well within the reasonable range of the defendant's purported share of comparative liability for plaintiff's claims, thus pursuant to California's penal codes. So basically, they got their settlement from cash money, but it only represented cash money. That's it. Because guess what? Booyah. This court document was filed on March 16th of 2026. Oh, yes, this case is still going right now to this day between Kenneth Lawson and Cash McElroy Jones, all the way in 2026. That is 6 years later that he is still in court with Wack. So they went to court, okay? The matter is called for a hearing. Counsel indicated that they have read the court's tentative ruling, okay? After considering the responding papers and the arguments of the counsel, the court signs the stipulation to continue the trial. Trial filed on 3/13/2026. Order to show cause regarding the 5-year rule is discharged this date. Cross complaints, oral motion for a jury trial is heard and argued and is denied. So there'll be no jury trial. The court advises counsel that any request for relief from non-jury trial must be made by notice motion, as jury fees have not been paid pursuant to Section 631. Now, before we've heard that people have to pay for these jury fees, right? Now, the non-jury trial is continued to September 14th, 2016. So they will be back in court for a non-jury trial on September 14th of this year. This case has drug on since 2026. This case has been going on. I mean, since 2020, my bad. This case has been going on between Wack and Kenneth Lawson. Now, Cash Money done already pulled themselves up out of this loop. They said, we ain't got nothing to do with this. You ain't got no proof that that man worked for us. Even if he was working for us, he was not working within the scope of Cash Money Records. Okay, so he don't represent us. But because it's going to cost us too much money to go back and forth with you in court, we're just going to settle with you and give you a little settlement, something that we all can agree on. But that only covers us. That only covers Brian and Ronald Williams and Cash Money Records ENT. I ain't got shit to do with that Fifth Amendment. I ain't got shit to do with that Cash Money West, and I ain't got shit to do with that Cash McElroy Jones. I don't know, Bugs. Bugs asked, so what happens if he loses and that gets backdated? How much money does he have to pay out? I don't know. Listen, I just read the court docs. I ain't no lawyer. Thank you. So that was a good one. Shout out to y'all for dropping them Henny glasses, because we got a good one. That was a good one. That was a good one. That was a good one. So what y'all thinking about all of this? Defrauding the church. Now, didn't he say when he was on the Oh, okay. Now, he was on No Jumper, and didn't he tell David to file his paperwork? and he'll just drag him through court for 5 or 6 years. Y'all see what he do. He assaulted that man 7 years ago. Court documents was there in 2020. Birdman and them, they got themselves up out of that shit. And here we are, 6 years later, he still got them tied up in litigations. Now, I'm going to say this really quickly to Adam. Adam, I don't think you have the guap, the cheddar, the manyan, the cha-ching that Cash Money Records has to make things go away. Because if you did, you would have made this Jay Reed case go away. And I don't see where you've tried to distance yourself from Wack in any way. But he gonna take you down. And anybody that does business with him, he is a liability. He is a cancer to your business. If you are an artist that is tied up with him, I pray for you, your soul, and your finances, because at the end of the day, he gonna take you through there like he did the game. Because you know the game, his house, he done took loans out on that man's house like it was his house, and it just got bought and sold. The game's house went bye-bye. And we followed that case. And it's been sold. And I covered that too. But we're going to get into all of that later on, because y'all told y'all every day this week I will be going live and I will be giving y'all another flashback to Cash McElroy Jones, aka Wack 100's court documents. And even though we have covered these cases years ago, now it's starting to make sense with a lot of stuff when we see how he moves, the things he said online, the way he's carried himself and conducted himself. And now he sat up there on Clubhouse talking about, man, it's a civil RICO. It's still a RICO. It's still a RICO. But I'll be interested to see what happens with this trial right here. We're going to keep our eyes on this for y'all and report back to y'all after he goes to court. But y'all, thank y'all for tapping in and tuning in with your girl. But I'll definitely be back tomorrow night. I didn't do it yesterday because I was up for 8 hours on my other channel covering Krishan and Blueface, child. That madness. They got the madness. They be putting the internet in a frenzy. But now we're going to go ahead and bid YouTube adieu. Mods, please drop the link for the Twitch, because we are going over to Twitch and we are going to be discussing Ashley Janae, D4VD, and a couple of other things that crossed my mind while we over there too. But don't worry if you're not a part of the Twitch bar. What'll happen is you'll get the video in the morrow. Do I have any mods in here? Where my snipers at? Oh, there you go. Boop. Thank you, uniquely, girl. Because I'm like, wait a minute. Did everybody bounce over to the Twitch bar? Yes. So y'all going on ahead and y'all hit that Twitch link. Let's keep the party flowing. But in the meantime and in between time, I'm going to say thank you for tapping in with your girl. And I'll see y'all later.